What is up, my friends? Today, I want to talk about the two types of practitioners that are out there. The type of practitioner you are honestly defines not just how you work, but also the outcomes that you help your clients achieve. Right, so let's jump in. Now let's start by kind of defining these two types of practitioners. Practitioner A treats the problem, right? They focus on symptoms that their clients present with. They diagnose issues based on a checklist of complaints, right? You have these things, which means you have this diagnosis. Practitioner A is kind of quick to categorize symptoms under a specific diagnosis and then develop a treatment plan that kind of aims to reduce those symptoms. Practitioner B, on the other hand, treats the person, right? They look beyond the surface symptoms to understand the individual as a whole, right? Considering not just the immediate complaints, but also the underlying factors that contribute to the overall well-being of that person. Practitioner B kind of recognizes that symptoms are often just the tip of the iceberg, right? The real work lies in addressing the root cause and supporting the body's natural healing processes. Now, before I start throwing rocks at practitioner A, and that is not the intention of this video, I want to take a moment to kind of acknowledge that practitioner A is not at fault here. This approach is a byproduct of the way our healthcare system is designed, right? And our health education system is designed. Most graduates of a traditional health education fall into this category, right? Because the system itself is inherently problem-oriented. It's driven by a reductionist viewpoint where illnesses are broken down into symptoms to be managed rather than clues that kind of lead us to an actual solution. I was practitioner A for the first 5 years in my profession as a physio. And it's taken me, honestly, a number of years to kind of unlearn this model and adopt a new outlook, right? But in the current system, healthcare often becomes synonymous with illness management, right? Like if we really look at the healthcare system we have, there's not a lot of care for health. It's much more this maintenance of illness, right? It's how do we just keep moving on? Now, I'm not going to go into the pessimistic side down the rabbit hole of why the system is built the way it is. We can address that in a different video. But the goal of the healthcare system really is to kind of alleviate symptoms rather than kind of generate true health. The focus is on fixing, right, the problem from these external means rather than creating an environment where the body can generate health. Right? This comes back a little bit to systems thinking, which again, we'll kind of come back to in another video. But as practitioners, right, when we go through this education model, we get caught up in this outlook, this view, right? Using symptoms as our primary diagnostic criteria and inadvertently overlooking the bigger picture, which is like the overall health and life experience of the individual in front of me, right? When we use symptoms as this diagnostic criteria, we fail to recognize all of the influences or contributing factors, right? We just say, oh, you've got X, Y, and Z symptoms. That means you have this diagnosis. That means you get this treatment. But that is honestly not how health works in the body, right? We can have a set of symptoms that come from multiple different causes, right? Let's take anxiety, for example. Some people feel anxious when they're underslept. Others can feel anxious when they're overcaffeinated. Others can feel anxious when they've been sedentary for too long. Others can feel anxious when they have a dip in their blood sugars, right? So if we just say the symptom of anxiety means you have anxiety, this diagnostic label, that means we're not going to investigate sleep, caffeine, or certain compounds, exercise, movement, nutrition, right? We're just like, oh, anxiety, right? Here's the treatment plan for anxiety. It's not the ideal way to approach things. But what if there is a different way, right? There is a different way. So let's talk practitioner B, right? Practitioner B is on a journey to evolve the clinical outlook, right? Their frameworks and their systems to approach health, right? They recognize the need to shift from problem-oriented model to a person-focused and system-focused model. It's really about embracing more of a holistic approach, right? That word gets thrown around a lot, but holistic being, right, the sum of the individual parts is greater. How do these parts interconnect and interrelate, and how are they interdependent, right? They affect each other within this container of a big system. So we consider the whole person, their lifestyle, their behaviors, their environment, their emotional state, their psychological state, right? And very importantly in my mind is their breath, right, as a driver of the system. So there are various different tools that practitioner B might use to help clients kind of connect with their own healing potential. Breathwork is just one example, but I'm going to use that example because, well, that's the tool that I am most passionate about, right? Breathwork is not about managing symptoms. It's really about restoring balance to a system. And that's a very big difference there, right? We don't see breathwork as this tool of, oh, you have these symptoms, let's use breathwork to alleviate these symptoms. I see breathwork as a tool that comes in, supports the underlying system, and allows, right, the human body to course correct. In doing so, oftentimes we see an alleviation of those symptoms, right? Not because we breathwork them away, but because breathwork created a state of balance in the body, right? There is an innate knowing that when the body is under the right conditions, it can do some pretty miraculous things. The issue being most people aren't in the right conditions, right? Because lifestyle habits, their mindset, their emotional state, their nutrition, their sleep quality, their breathing, all push the nervous system away from that state of balance, right? And so the kind of challenge we face today in the 21st century, it demands us to move and evolve into practitioner B, right? We see these epidemics of chronic stress, of anxiety, of pain, of fatigue, of suicide, and all these things are grossly mismanaged by the current approach, which is this problem-focused, symptom management heavy model, right? Which practitioner A is the byproduct of, right? As health practitioners, our ability to help clients really heal and thrive depends on this evolution, moving away from symptoms towards systems, right? Moving away from problems towards people, right? And really having an approach that looks at the bigger picture, not these isolated sets of symptoms that have this criteria that are met to give you a certain diagnosis. It's a very reductionist way to look at things. And that's why, unfortunately, we have the health outcomes we do today, right? Because the model has been built in a way that prioritizes reductionism, right? Specific symptoms, diagnosis, because then we can use a specific, let's call it what it is, pharmaceutical intervention to manage that set of symptoms. It's a very good model for business, not a very good model for health, right? Becoming practitioner B, the holistic, person-focused, system-focused practitioner, isn't just an option anymore in my mind. It's a necessity, right? It's about really expanding our toolkit, embracing new perspectives, and committing to this kind of holistic, person-centered approach that considers the whole individual within the environment that they exist, right? We can't separate those two things. And so I just want to kind of pose the question to you, what type of practitioner are you, or what type of practitioner do you want to be? It took me a really long time to recognize, oh wait, I am practitioner A, right? I am problem focused, I am symptom focused. And as I mentioned, it took me a long time to unlearn that and relearn a new model. But since doing that, my understanding of health has completely changed. My approach with my clients and the results that I'm able to help my clients achieve have changed very dramatically. And that's why I'm so passionate about teaching what I teach, right? This new approach that looks really at system thinking, right, as it relates to health, and how tools like the breath can be used to support the underlying function of the system. I hope this maybe causes a little bit of an itch that you need to scratch, right, of what type of practitioner am I? And I hope, right, you see this as a path to evolve into practitioner B. I hope this helps.